Take each game and its merits there.
Hello and welcome to our brand new podcast, Each Game on Its Merits.
Each week we'll be looking back at every senior soccer international ever played by an FAI's side, going all the way back to 1924. My name is Eibhilin O'Reardon.
I am Gary Cook. And together we have been running the acclaimed football walking tour since August 2020. And today we are joined, as always, by our resident expert football know-everything nerd, Jerry Farrell. Hi, Jerry.
Hello.
So, Jerry, today we are talking about Ireland's first game at the 1924 Olympics, a game against Bulgaria. But let's recap on last week's match, which was the Glasgow Celtic game, which was a fundraiser.
That's right. So we talked about last week, we talked about Ireland versus Glasgow Celtic in February of 2024. This is a fundraiser to try and raise funds to get the team to the Olympics. They're basically stony broke. The FAI don't have the money to send them. It's going to take around £800, which is a lot of money at the time. The game against Glasgow Celtic is a record attendance, but it only raises about £250-300, so they have to get the begging bowl out, ask the public to raise money. So they put out ads in newspapers, but eventually they get the money to take a squad of 16 players and a few hangers-on and well-wishers to the Olympics in May of 1924 in Paris.
So the first game was Ireland versus Bulgaria, Ayan.
Yeah, so played in Stade de Columbus in Paris. The attendance looks like it was 1,659 people. Not a huge attendance, much less than the 22,000 that came to Diamond Park. But the players that lined out, of course, all League of Ireland teams, 5 of them from Athlone Town, because Athlone Town had won the FAI Cup that year. Am I right, Jerry? So some names here: Dykes, Hannon, O'Reilly, Muldoon. These are all Athlone Town players. And anyway, the game results in a 1-0 win for the Irish. Paddy Duncan scores in the 75th minute, and Ireland are off to a great start.
Yeah, that's right. And it's, I suppose, to specify for everyone, the Olympics at this time is strictly amateur. In fact, it's so amateur that Britain actually pull out because of the football tournament, because they don't think it's amateur enough, because some associations are giving what they call broken time payments, so you have to take time off for your job, so you're reimbursed for that. That for them isn't amateur enough, it's not strict enough. And you got to remember, even probably just 11 years before this, probably the greatest American all-round athlete of all time, Jim Thorpe, is stripped of his gold medals from the Olympics because he's played a little bit of minor league baseball in some other game randomly.
Really?
So that's how strict they are. They're super, super strict. So all these players are amateurs. And one thing we might come to as well, they're all from within the Free State, from within the 26 counties, and that's probably why you have so many Athlone players and so many Bohemian players, because obviously Bows are a strictly amateur club, and a few of the others, most of the other big teams, even the ones who were paying players like Shelburne and Shamrock Rovers, would have had 1 or 2 amateur players playing for them as well.
So there is a move to make this recognised as the first FAI Senior International, but there's always been a question mark over that, because there's a game in Italy in 1926 which is actually presented as the first international, but you feel this is the first one.
I argue that this is the first one for a couple of reasons.
Why,
well,
Jerry?
Because one, this is the first tournament organised by FIFA, so this is the FIFA organised tournament on behalf of the Olympics.
Oh, okay.
So the Olympics go, hey FIFA, you know about football, organise the tournament.
So the previous ones weren't organised by FIFA?
Yeah. FIFA themselves recognise these as full internationals. FIFA recognise Uruguay, who won the tournament, won the gold medal in 24 and 28, as being world champions. So if you ever look at Uruguay's list of honours, they'll wear 4 stars because they've been world champions 4 times in their view: 24, 28, 30 and 50. So FIFA recognise these as full internationals. Most other associations do as well. So the USA, who we'll come on to in a couple of weeks' time, they recognise those games of the Olympics as among their first ever internationals, and they're given full international status. For many years they were viewed as our full internationals, so I think we should acknowledge them as being full international, not an amateur international or anything like that. And you got to remember, the vast majority of football in the world is amateur, or at least shamateur, where it's under the counter payments. The first league outside of yeah.
Enter obvious GAA joke here.
Yeah, we won't mileage allowances and whatnot. But put it this way, 1924 is the first year that a league outside of Britain or Ireland starts paying players officially, which is the Austrian league in 24.
That's
Prior to
right.
that,
And Austria actually beat Bulgaria 6-0 in Bulgaria's first match, because Bulgaria's first game was in 1922.
Right.
Their first international, full international football match in 1922. They lost 6-0 against Austria, and then they had the further indignity of being beaten by Ireland. I of course, to be disrespectful to these great guys who went out there and who did it for no money. They didn't even get mileage money. This is disgrace. I'm gonna go off and cry now.
So we're launching a campaign today to get this formally recognised as the first international.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. On the 100th anniversary, of course.
On the 100th anniversary, right? This is great stuff. So what's interesting actually also is, which may have was rekindled this sort of controversy, even if it was a controversy, about the colour, because on the 100th anniversary of the FAI, a replica shirt was produced by the FAI that was worn against Qatar in a friendly, a blue shirt. And we actually, for anybody watching on our on our video feed, this is a replica of what would have been worn, and this is St. Patrick's blue, and this is what they would have worn in the Olympics.
That's right, and we would have heard from we'll hear from Bert Kerr, who is the nephew of one of the players, Bert Kerr, his namesake, who he's seen his original St. Patrick's blue Ireland shirt. And
of course, one of the interesting things about it is that blue is the actual official.
It actually is. Now, not to sort of go political here, but in my day job, I work in Leinster House, and a lot of the upholstery and carpets and seats, etc., are blue. And actually, the president's crest has a blue background because it is actually the official state colour, which is not everybody knows that.
No, we mentioned this on the football.
People got very occasion.
People go, what? What's he talking about? No, we're not green. We're green.
So we were the boys in blue originally. We were the original boys in blue. So okay, so
there's also a practical issue. Bulgaria wear green, so it's easier for us to wear blue.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So this is quite a substantial win. Talk us through some of these players now, because we talked about some of the players who played in this Celtic match in the last episode. We have a few interesting characters here.
Yeah, there's a few of those in the Celtic match who probably wouldn't have been eligible under the amateur rules, because even if they were playing amateur in Ireland, they would have played professionally beforehand, and that's why I kind of mentioned Jim Thorpe. Even if they were no longer professionals, had they played professionally, they still wouldn't be eligible. So guys we mentioned like Bill O'Hagan, people like that who played professionally in England, they wouldn't have been allowed to go on the tour. And there's a few guys who are quite close, but they were in playing some of these trial matches beforehand. People like Ned Brooks and others who play in games directly after that, who wouldn't have been selected because previously they would have played in been paid to play either in England or Ireland.
So in winning this game to get through to a quarter final, right? So is this as significant an achievement as the 1990 achievement? I mean, on the face of it, I mean, it's hard to equate. But if this is the FIFA recognised international tournament, if this is the best teams of the world all together under the one competition, all right? I mean, there would people may say the professional players were excluded, therefore maybe it does. But this is the international tournament, and they get to the quarter final because they win this match. Is this the equivalent of beating Romania in 1990?
What it is, in fact, it's one better because they actually won a match. Whereas in 1990 we didn't actually win a game.
This is true. This is true.
So, okay, but it was a big achievement. What was it considered to be a big achievement?
Were Bulgaria any good? No, they weren't, because they lost 6-0 to Austria.
Bulgaria were kind of an unknown quantity because Bulgaria has only really emerged as a country since 1908 after the kind of secession from the Ottoman Empire. They're kind of like Ireland. They were part of a larger empire. They're getting their independence now. They're trying to assert themselves in sport, in public life, in politics. So there's a lot of comparisons between, say, Bulgaria and Ireland. But no, it is a big deal because there's 22 teams joined this competition. It's the first FIFA organised competition, as we've said. And it's the biggest football tournament to date. So this is the biggest international football tournament that's happened in the world thus far. We get a bye in the first round because 22, it's an odd number. We win this game and we get to the quarterfinal. So it is a huge achievement. And even getting there is a huge achievement because in the previous episode we talked about all the difficulties, the lack of support, the challenges that this team faced. I mentioned previously some of the even internal opposition. I think I called him JJ Walsh on last week's episode. Actually, JJ Keane, who was the.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that because we were bristling.
Yeah, I was going to take a case against this guy for misrepresentation. He's a spoofer. You're a spoofer. And you're on borrowed time here.
Neither I nor Gary have made.
How dare you? How dare you?
We haven't made a misstep yet, and
Listen,
you messed up big style the first
Oh,
episode.
we take
Yeah.
each mistake on its own merits.
But just to say, like, he's the Irish representative. On
Which
the
guy now? JJ who?
JJ Keane, John James Keane from Limerick, a double All-Ireland winner, a Dublin Irish cross-country champion. He's very good all-round sportsman. Doesn't like football though. And after this tournament, the FAI are actually writing kind of correspondence to each other saying, for future reference, how do we go around this JJ Keane guy, because he's so he doesn't support football. He views it as a garrison game. You'd say he's someone who's very much in favour of the ban, for example.
Right. Okay. Which, as we said last week, was the GA ban on all foreign games, which had a huge impact on the playing.
So it is a huge achievement when you consider even.
But they never played together before. I mean, this is literally their first. I mean, they didn't even play together in the Celtic match or in the Welsh League match. This is the first time this 11 players have actually. And there's a photograph here in front of us. There's only 9 of them there. I don't know what the other 2 guys are doing, but anyway, it was a full 11. Yeah. But they had never played together before.
It's like they're fundraising still.
to get more money for a few bob. Well, 5 of them would have. Obviously, the town players would have known each other very a lot. Did a bit of research on this to see if there was ever an Irish-born footballer who played in the Olympics previously, and there was a guy called Joe Lydon who played for an American side in the 1904 Olympics, hilariously from Swinford in County Mayo. And he was also a very accomplished boxer. So it's not the first Irish footballer to appear, but I think that guy is hilarious. But what's interesting is about that competition, it was basically just 3 college teams, 2 from America, 1 from Canada. So while football was played in the Olympics, it seems to have been a bit of an afterthought and very poorly organised.
It's kind of considered one of those exhibition sports. So
right.
It's Canada will still claim they won a gold at soccer, a team called Gant winning it, but really it's an exhibition. Learn about football sort of thing rather than a really strong competitive international tournament.
Okay.
Let's be honest.
And this was, of course, before the World Cup.
Yes.
There was an unofficial kind of World Cup in the 20s, wasn't there? And there was a team from, I think it was at Bishop's Auckland.
Yeah, they
went from near Newcastle, was it? Went to play in a tournament in Italy.
The Lipton Cup. So Lipton Tea, Thomas Lipton sponsors this. He was a keen sportsman and also saw the branding and sponsorship possibilities. So he did sponsor a trophy, and I suppose it's testament to the somewhat insular attitude of the FA in England that they allowed an amateur team to go over to, I think it was Italy, to play the tournament, and they played some top Italian clubs and win. So I think they claim to be the first club world champions.
That's right, and there was a TV show made out of it. And actually, they saw the Juventus players training and were amused by what they were doing. They got that lad, he's just betting the ball around the wall, man.
Well, anyway, so there we have the first, if you like, international between two national sides, if you like, in our podcast series. Ireland won, Bulgaria 0, the 28th of May 1924. And Paddy Duncan scores the goal in the 75th minute.
Yeah, and Paddy Duncan's an interesting guy. Dirty Duncan, as you mentioned him.
Yeah.
He's a very versatile guy. He can play in defence, he can play in midfield. In this game he's put in attack, but we see in forthcoming games he moves around a bit. As you say, there's very little coverage of it because no journalists go to cover this. It's basically members of the party are telegraphing back to newspapers to tell them how they're getting on. And they're taking a little bit of some Irish expats in Paris are reporting stuff back, so that's why you get so many confusing reports, whether it was Michael Farrell or Johnny Murray who crossed for Duncan to score the goal. So there's a lot of dispute, but we think it was Farrell crossing for Duncan, who apparently was offside to score the goal.
Really?
Yes. Now,
really?
Having said that,
no VAR in 1924.
No VAR. We had another goal he scored ruled out for offside.
So how are you crossing it? But how could he be offside from a cross?
A
true ball.
Farrell gets to the ball.
Hold it there.
Whips it in.
But in those days,
your best answer.
It was a different ball. Well, different ball, but there was a different rule for offside. Now, obviously, the rule is if your quiff is offside, you're offside.
Would it have been 3 players?
It was 2 players.
3 players.
3 players. Yeah. So they changed that they changed in the season that Dixie Dean scored the 60 goals, which I think was 26, 27. I want to say so.
So if a ball played forward, there had to be 3 players between the attacking player and the goal.
Yeah. Now, if you read about it though, like we did
You would have loved that in
absolutely
your
hammer
goal.
them. The Bulgarian goalkeeper, I don't know if you have it there.
Oh yeah, we missed 3 penalties.
Yeah, so, well, the Bulgarian goalkeeper, I think his name's Ivanov. I'm going to say that. But
well, now you're a bit dodgy on your facts now. Heretofore, you know what I mean? I mean, you made one mistake last week, and you're going to make another mistake today.
He's a young lad in goal, and he has the absolute game of his life. And we have 3 penalties. We give to the oldest player on the pitch to take, Dinny Hannon, who is formerly at Bohemians but has gone back to play for Athlone Town. He's from the Midlands. He's a former IFA international, so he is our first dual international because he's been capped by the IFA in the past.
So yeah,
and he takes all 3 penalties,
and they're all saved. So hold on a second now. So
and then we have a second goal ruled out for offside.
So if you, I mean, a second goal ruled out for offside.
We hit the bar a few times.
We were always getting
so we
goals
hammered
ruled out in Paris and
that's true.
Against Bulgaria.
It's a horrible combination. So come here. So the guy. So we win a penalty, and he misses. Oh, it's saved. Fair enough. You know, we get a second one, and
it's worth saying Hannon is both the captain and by far the oldest player on the team. He may actually be one of the oldest players in the tournament. He's 36 at the time.
But surely when the second one was missed, you would have thought getting a third penalty. I mean,
that is not the way.
That's changed.
That's not the way people thought in those days. The reality was everything was seniority.
Yeah.
And hierarchical.
Not the only famous Athlone Town missed penalty, I say, in the history of the club. Famously missed one against Milan in 1975, was it?
Yeah. And of course, there's no actual manager in the modern sense of the world that we would know, no head coach. The guy on the touchline is Charlie Harris, who's the trainer, who is, he's there to encourage them and give them a rub down and massage any injuries and things like that. And there's a couple of other FAI officials there, but there's no manager in the modern sense of the world who would say, Dinny, no, you're not taking the penalty. It's going to be
decided
Johnny.
Amongst themselves.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So
he's the captain. He's the senior man. They defer to him.
Right. So one goal ruled offside, 3 missed penalties, and the goal that was scored, you feel, from
reports say
from your extensive research,
sounds like it was offside. Yeah.
But, okay.
And the young Bulgarian keeper has the absolute game of his life, apparently.
Right, okay, but he still lost 1-0. But it wouldn't make a difference winning 4-0 or 1-0. There's
no goal difference. And to say as well, this is it's end of May. It's incredibly hot in Paris.
Yeah.
The lads are sweating buckets out there.
Yeah.
So they're not, and it's a very, very hard pitch by all accounts as well. It's a very hard, dry pitch.
But the goalkeeper there is basically wearing a sweatshirt.
Yeah. Like big heavy ball, woolen jumpers, that sort of stuff.
Okay, very good.
And one particularly notable player.
Yes.
Bert Kerr.
Bert Kerr, who his nephew, we are delighted to say, is able to join us and talk about memories he has, Jerry.
That's right, yeah. Look, Bert, his nephew, will tell it better, but I have a particular interest in the Kerr family because they were the third set of brothers, Bert and Kevin Kerr, to captain the club. And look, I'll pass over to Bert Jr. To kind of talk about his uncle and his amazing career in sport, not just in football.
I'm Bert Kerr, and my uncle was Bert, who played for Bows and had a very strong connection with the club. Even after he retired from football, he went into the bloodstock business, and he was hugely successful at it. He adopted the colours of Bohemians for his racing colours, and they won a couple of races this year. And his first winner was 1929, and what did he call it? Dalymount Park. So he's got a load of horses that have the Bohemian connection, the Dalymount connection, all that. So he played for Bows. He grew up in Drumcondra, and he had 3 brothers. They were my uncles, obviously, as well. My father was the only one married, and Kevin, his younger brother, would have played for Bohemians in the up to the late 30s during the war years. And people often felt that if the war hadn't happened, and if international matches were playing with the usual regularity, that Kevin would have got on the team as well. Not in the 24 one because he was too young, but no, in later years around the 30s. And Kevin became a president of the club, and of course Bert was invited regularly to take up the role, but he was a pretty shy sort of guy. And he he always found somebody to take on the responsibility. But he said, if I won't be a president, but I'd be a vice president. So everybody was happy with that. He loved the club. It's deeply ingrained in our family and in our family history. And then when he went for the Olympics, that was a huge thing. I tell you, he is a very successful, was a very successful guy in the bloodstock business, but that's an international business. The only time he ever travelled outside of Ireland was to go to Paris for the Olympic Games in 1924. They were away about 3 weeks, and when they came back, they were talking about, some of them said, we've never seen football played like it was played from some of the South American teams in those times. But no, he loved everything about the club. And the other thing he said, and we actually had it, but I don't know where it is now, is the jerseys they played in the Olympic Games, they were what they called a light blue colour, and it was the St. Patrick's blue, and a big shamrock on the breast. So I have some photographs, would you believe, of that match in Cologne, Stade Cologne. I was looking at them here this morning, and I could always lend them to the club if you ever wanted to have them. They're action photographs, and so that basically is the background to the whole thing. And my brother Charles, who's younger than me, he's a member of your club, and he goes to the matches regularly.
And Bert, just talking about those Olympic Games, obviously there was a bit of from what my research, it shows that they kind of asked players to put themselves forward, because not everyone obviously could take, as you said, 3 weeks away from work, because most of the footballers were working men, and well, they had to be amateurs to compete in the Olympics, and Bert obviously was, being a Bows player. Did you know any stories about him making that decision, or is there anything that maybe your uncle Kevin had told you about that, or anything like that?
Yeah, well, when he was selected, it was a no-brainer from what I can gather. He was going away, and he was going away with his friends, and it was because he was running a business at the same time, because he founded the business in 1920, 4 years before that, the bloodstock business, an insurance business as well. And so he was in a position to make the decision for himself, and he was independent decision. He made it. It was a no-brainer. He was going to go and play for his country, and that gave him a freedom that some of the other guys probably didn't have. You know, they'd have to ask for the time off. He would just give himself the time off. So that was a big plus for him. And but it's so funny, you know, when you think he died when he was about 80, having sent horses all over the world and watched international matches and everything like that, the football. And he never ventured outside Paris. That was the only time outside Ireland. Outside. He went to England, obviously. But yeah, it was an extraordinary man. And he was he was a wonderful part of our family, and we remember him fondly. As I'm talking to you now, I'm looking at him here. I have a photograph in my office, 1941 in Gough Sales, and he's there holding a horse that somebody's trying to buy. So, you know, he was unique in that respect. He was a very independent guy. But he was always honoured, and we still have his Olympic scroll. You know, that's framed, and it's in, my sister actually has in our house. Yeah, that's exactly right, Jerry.
Bert, did you have any particular memories of those games in Paris? You said you spoke about how talented the South American teams were, and of course Uruguay won that tournament and the following one. Any particular recollections of the matches, or even just, I suppose, the culture shock of being in such a different city? I think he was only about 30 at the time he went.
Yeah, he probably would have been, because, as I say, he founded the business in 1920, so that would have been 4 years before that. And then he had to knuckle down. His father died after the Olympics. He was around to see Bert's compete. No, I think the biggest impression that he was left with, and all the other lads as well, when they came back, just talking about, you know, when they met people later on, when they were relaxing and they were talking about the experience, the thing that kept on just jumping forward the whole time was the type of football Uruguay were playing. And it was an eye-opener. And even years later, when he'd be telling me stories, that would be one of his stories. He said, we couldn't get over what we saw. And the pictures that I have, he's playing Holland, and he's playing, I think it's the USA, and it covers 3 matches anyway, not in its entirety, but they're pictures of Bert, action photographs, if you like. and of course when he came back, and the fact that he'd been playing for Ireland and had to go abroad, and he was seen. He said he always felt he was representing Bohemians as well as the country. He was absolutely passionate about Bohs, and we were all. It was ingrained in our, and to turn around and adopt his racing colours in the club colours, not knowing what he might never have succeeded or had the success in the horse business. So but he was way he believed in what the club gave him, I think, and used to talk about it like that, Jerry, passionately.
And I suppose it must have been a big honour for him when he got back. Obviously, that game against the USA is played in Dalymount Park, which obviously he was very familiar with, but he was made captain for that game.
He was, but the USA were a good team in those times. And like in the years that followed, the USA were regarded as a good football team, and they weren't any ordinary old inferior club country team. These guys knew how to play football, and it was just the backdrop of the whole thing. And then it kept Bohemia's name up there in the tough times that they had in the 50s and 60s. And he brought me along one day to see Bohemians playing, and I remember it was the time when Ben O'Sullivan and Bobby Wade, Billy Young, Willie Brown, all those guys. I remember them. Now I know they were after Bert's team, but between you and me, he helped a lot of people associated with the club. If the club needed a dig out, because again he was independent with his business, he gave them many dig outs in the days when they were going nowhere. In the 60s, it was a struggle. And
of course, with the amateur era and all that. One other question, Bert, I want to ask you was that I read somewhere that there was a bit of a doubt that he might make the Olympics because a bit beforehand he got a bad injury and had a jaw broken and had a few teeth knocked out in a rough challenge from another player. Did he ever talk about that, or did he ever mention anything like that?
Not very much. He didn't need to, Jerry, because the game, the way it was played in those times, from what I know, was very, very hard and very, very physical. I mean, you know yourself what it's like nowadays, but they didn't take any prisoners in those days, and that was the way soccer was played. And yes, he came away with that, and he talk about it a bit, and but he said it was the way the game was played, and but he came out of those matches, and his reputation was intact because he was tough, he was hardy. He wasn't over big man, but he was a hardy character and could take a blow. But I remember one of the features when he first came into my life was this chin of his would stick out like that, and he'd be looking at you, and the more he would be getting a bit frustrated or what. And I don't mean in football necessarily, but I can imagine it was a transfer to his normal day of life, and he would stick out his chin and he'd go for it. And when he was buying cheap horses that were going to go on, and nobody could ever understand how he could buy horses so cheap, just didn't have the money. But he used to stick his chin out when he'd be bidden, and he'd bid away there, and the auctioneers knew him, and then it'd be knocked down to him. But no, I think he obviously told the story, but it was embellished a bit, I think, But because if you got your jaw broken in those times, you'd nearly have to go into town and buy a new jaw that wouldn't be able to fix it,
Yeah.
But no, he was great. I loved the club, and was proud to play for Ireland. And he talked about it many times.
I know you were saying you used to have the jersey, Bert. Do you have any of the actual physical caps that they would have given? Or I think there was some mention that they might have made kind of souvenirs like mementos or a watch for each of the players or anything like that?
Well, the caps were the things, as you know, and I think we gave whatever caps we had to you. I'm pretty sure, because Kevin's caps were in much greater condition because he was younger, and they were in the house in Drumcondra until they died. And then I think they gave them to, well, there's no other club that they would give them to.
Yeah.
But listen, anything else I can help you with, Jerry, you know me.
That's great stuff, Bert. Always a pleasure.
Next week we will turn to a big quarterfinal game against the Dutch.
On the next episode of Each Game on Its Merits. There.